All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Outright Fundraising for Team Outright webinar for today. This is Lou Mulvaney-Stanek, the interim ED for Outright Vermont. Hope you guys are all doing well. First off, I'm going to start with a tech question. Wondering if everybody can hear me. And if the way to kind of respond to that is there's a little chat window, hopefully that's on your right side of your screen or left side of your screen, where you can just chat me back and say, yep, I can totally hear you, no big deal. Or if you can't hear me, that would be helpful. So I'm also going to chat that in there too. Looks like we've got a yes. Probably sounding good. Great. We're going to keep rolling along then. All right. So hopefully in half an hour or less, with some tips from this webinar, you're going to be able to very easily meet your goal to help fundraise for Outright. And so first off, we want to start by basically obviously saying thank you to everybody who is running on the team this year. You are part of over 100 different folks who have been on the team for the past 5 or 6 years. This is our 6th year running in the marathon. And believe it or not, we have raised a ton of money from doing the marathon. And so part of our goal with you guys is to make sure that we are doing our due diligence to make sure you raise as much as is possible, basically. And I think we're knocking on almost $80,000 with a total of the last 6 years. So just to give you context, each year the average is around $10,000 to $20,000 that is fundraised, depending on how many runners there are. So you're part of a good team there, kind of collectively. So that said, we know that running a marathon is not easy. We know that reaching fundraising goals can sometimes be intimidating. And so we're going to get ready to help you out here. And just for some quick context, with the team this year, well, there's another quick little look there. That was the team last year. This will be you this year, standing on that play structure with your fancy little Outright jerseys on. So we take that right the morning of the marathon before everybody heads out. And so far, the 10-day forecast is looking like it's actually not going to be as hot as it was that year. So that's already a good thing. Okay, so looking at this year for the marathon, based on the number of runners that we have, we kind of do a little bit of a calculation and an adjustment for our team goal. We do have a couple of less runners we have than this year than last year. So we have a total of 18 runners. Typically, we have about another usually we have about 25 runners total when all of our relay teams are filled, but no big deal because we alter the team fundraising collective goal as a result. So our goal this year is $15,000. With those 18 runners, each of you have a minimum goal to raise $350, which, believe it or not, it should be super doable. As of today, doing the webinar, we're about 36% of the way towards our goal, and that is actually right on track because raising the money for the marathon, actually over 50% of it comes in the final week. So if in case you were worrying that you're a little bit behind or that you haven't started at all, don't think that at all because the majority of the money actually comes in the final push for the 7 days and really the last couple days because excitement builds and people see how close we are to the goal and for you and your own goals and the team goal, and people really kind of turn it out at that point. So that's a good thing. Okay, so we got a top 10 tips to fundraise here because it's kind of the easiest way to usually give you a list of things to do. So we're just going to start it off with number one, which is, what is your why? So believe it or not, most people, when there's like an activity that you're doing to raise money, there's kind of two reasons that people give. They either give because they like you and they love you and they want to support anything that you ever do, or they give because of the organization and the mission. And so no matter which reason that somebody's giving to you, you have to kind of tell people why you're actually doing this, heroic feat of running a marathon, or in some cases later on in the year for Outright, people pull fire trucks for us. So defining and just taking 5 minutes to just write up your story of why are you running on the Outright marathon team? Why did you say yes to us? Is it fun? Do you really support the mission? Do you have a personal connection to the mission? What is that kind of 5-minute elevator speech story? And I do encourage people to actually write it down, type it up, whatever it might be, because within that, when you do that kind of brain dump of that story, you're going to find pieces of the story like quotes, maybe some stats that you resonate with you, that you're going to be able to use as part of you making your what are called asks for money. And so basically you're able to kind of pull from there kind of the greatest hits or the most pressing reason of your why, and use that as your kind of like mantra throughout, not just training for the marathon, but also in asking for money. So the example I give there is like maybe the big thing that is what Outright does is that we work towards safer schools for all. And so maybe that's your kind of thing that you're, sticking with as you're like asking for money. You're saying, all right, like I'm raising $350 and, I'm really looking to help support the safe schools effort that Outright does throughout the state of Vermont. This is why it's really important to me. Will you, help me get to the goal with fundraising? So defining that why is kind of the first step. All right, so number 2, now it's time to do some math. Not like fancy math, not complicated math. This is literally you making kind of a list of how you're going to get to that goal of $350. And again, some people actually raise way more than $350. The $350 is kind of like our benchmark minimum amount raised that collectively helps us all get to that goal of the 15,000. But basically, here's how I think it's reasonable to kind of figure out how many people who can give small amounts to get you towards that big goal. So you take that 350 and then divide the goal by the amount of actual individual dollars that you feel comfortable asking somebody for money. So in other words, if you feel like it's totally reasonable to ask people for 20 bucks each, then that's the number that you're dividing into the into the $350. So for example, like if you're only comfortable asking for $10 per person, you're gonna divide that into the $350. Which that's an easy math one. That's 35 people that you'd have to ask for 10 bucks. Now the trick is that not everybody you're going to ask for money, even for $10 or $20, is going to be able to give you that money. Some people are actually going to end up saying yes, of course, and they'll give you more than what you ask for, but not everybody is able to say yes. And so what I recommend, in addition to figuring out what the original number is, so if you're asking, again, for $10 per donation, you're going to ask 35 people, you actually then should double that number. So you can kind of account for the people who are not going to be able to give to you this year. So if we keep using the example actually that's on the slide here, say we're going to ask each person for $20, and then we've doubled that number to ask. We're going to ask 18 people. It'll take us 18 people of asking for a certain sweet number of people to say yes to get us to that $350. Hopefully that makes sense. But doing a math there basically allows you to kind of figure out not just, again, how much you're actually asking each individual person, but how many total people you're going to need to ask to get them to say yes. Okay. So you've got that total number of people that you're going to ask, how much you're going to ask them for money. The next thing is to make the list of the actual people that you're going to ask. Now, you could just post every single day forever and ever just on your social media. But if you don't specifically ask people, you're going to have a really hard time getting people to get to that goal. So yes, of course, a few people will say or give donations just based on just blanket social media posting. But if you ask people in a very specific, direct kind of way, they're much more likely to give money because it's really hard to say no to somebody. And so I actually recommend making 3 different types of lists of the total people that you're needing to ask. So this slide is based on asking 30 people total, right? So we're assuming that you're asking around that $10 mark here. But the first list that I would suggest making is an email list of 10 of your closest people. So these are the people that are close to you. Maybe they have no idea what Outright Vermont is. Maybe they don't really care that you run marathons. But who are those 10 really close people? Best friends, family, people who really care about you. Then you're going to make another list of another 10 people who are your general circles of people who know and support Outright Vermont, like know the mission of Outright, have heard about us, care about queer youth rights, that kind of stuff. So make a list of those 10 people. And of course, these should be separate lists. There should not be the same people on the list here. Then finally, you're going to make another list of 10 people, and this one's for social media. So 10 people that you're going to be able to tag on social media. So on Facebook, on Twitter, maybe even on Instagram, people that you actually do a lot of fundraising online already. So again, this is another separate group of 10 people, and maybe you might not be able to get to the 10-person mark, but I guarantee at least a handful of people who are kind of fundraisers online like you guys. So other people who are running marathons, other people who've pulled fire trucks, who've jumped in a lake for penguin plunge, whatever it is. So think back on who are those kinds of people, particularly in your social media circles, and make a little list of those folks as well. And these are going to be kind of your target direct ask people that you're going to make an ask of. And that brings us to slide number 4 and the tip number 4, basically. So this one is kind of the heart of all good fundraising, is that people are intimidated to ask for money because they feel like they're, they're going to be told no, or they're going to, there's all sorts of reasons that like people don't want to ask because they feel like they're just always asking for too much, or that someone might be like aghast that they're even not being asked for money. But the trick is that like the only task you have in fundraising is just to simply ask. You are not the one deciding how much money the other person is going to ultimately say yes to giving to you. And also, it's like no sweat if they say yes or no or whatever it is. Like your only one job is to ask for money. And that's really it. And again, with using those first couple of tips as your framework, if you're telling your story, if you're telling them that you're why you're picking them to ask for money. In other words, like I know you support me, I know you support the outright mission, I know you're a big fundraiser, with good causes. You're kind of giving them the context of like why this is important to you, why that they're your kind of dream team, your like specific asking squad. You're asking them for that specific amount. Again, the $10, maybe $20. Maybe you're being bold and you're asking like for $30. But giving a specific amount makes it way easier for someone to just do that quick calculation in their head to say, yeah, I can totally give Lou like $10 towards a marathon. In fact, I'm so shocked that Lou's going to run the marathon that I'm going to give Lou $50. So again, your job is to put the number out there, to put the ask out there, your story out there. Of course, pro tip, don't forget to add a link in, especially for emailing people, because you want it to be a very easy like click through right now and give. And then really, people are busy, so don't get dismayed if you're not seeing people donate immediately or respond immediately. You might need to send a follow-up email, a reminder email in a week, or in this case, we're roughly about 10 days out from the marathon or so. So you're going to want to like give them a reminder probably in a couple of days, probably 4 or 5 days, certainly before the marathon, of course. All right, moving right along to number 5. How you ask is key. So what I mean by this is that you want to be able to like put people in a position where they kind of can't say no, in other words. So emailing people is like totally fine, but believe it or not, the most successful way to get people to say yes is if you ask them in person. It's really, really hard for people to say no. Now, of course, this is mostly a format where we're asking people to give online, so there's kind of that extra step where you'd have to send a follow-up email with the link to donate. But if you ask somebody in person, I guarantee that they're going to pull out $10 out of their pocket or write you a check, because it's really hard to say no. The other way that it's hard to say no is over the phone. I know a lot of people don't like to call people anymore, but again, go back to those lists that you made of those like 10 people that are close to you, 10 people that who already love outright, 10 people that do fundraising already. Of those people, who can you ask in person? Who can you maybe call? Again, it's an easier way to make sure that people can't say no to you. And then also texts and emails also work too. You can totally text people, and a text is a direct way to make an ask. Email, of course, is functional because you've got the link embedded in there, but as I was mentioning in that previous slide, it's easy to have people's inboxes get filled up, and more people are not using an email as like the most responsive way. So just be measured. If you know somebody's really good on email, sure, absolutely email them. If you know somebody's like, more responsive via text, do texting. And then finally, of course, social media is going to always be your best friend. I'm always shocked and amazed and surprised when I get donations through social media. It's never the people I think will donate through social media. So, you can be creative on social media, posting the link to your donate page for for the team or for your individual fundraising page. Again, tell your story a little bit on social media, and I guarantee you'll see at least a couple donations come through from there. And again, be specific, even on social media, about specifically how much you're asking. Don't just say, generally, can you give me money? Put an actual number out there and let people respond to if they're going to give that much, give a little less, maybe give a little bit more. All right. Number 6. So you've done your due diligence, you've made your list, you've asked for a specific amount of money, you're putting it out there. What the next best part about doing fundraising is to give updates. People want to know how you're doing, both the people who've already kicked in some cash, but also the people who are kind of what we call like the heroes who want to kind of wait to the end to be the person who gets you to the finish line with the final $50 that's needed or whatever it is. So this is kind of what social media was built for, is like giving people kind of like a hype and an update on how you're doing. So especially if you're asking for small donations to get to the milestone or the total goal of the team, when Outright's team gets to like 75% of the goal, like you can use that as another motivator for people to kind of give to get to the final finish line there. You also, of course, want to emphasize how many days left there are to the marathon. 5 days out, it really builds this excitement and energy where people are going to want to get engaged or just basically stay in the loop and cheer you on. And then, of course, hopefully it goes without saying that you always want to thank people. Every time you're making an ask, you want to say thank you. And sometimes, depending on who the person is, it actually is nice to publicly thank them, tag them on Facebook and say, hey, Lou just gave $50 to me for running for the marathon. Thanks so much, Lou, and you're tagging me. But of course, the personal thank yous are also super important. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later on too. Okay, so number 7, what happens if somebody actually can't pony up $10 or $20 to the marathon? No big deal. We appreciate all and any support, and support is not always money. So we actually encourage people to think about signal boosting as another way to show support of our runners on the team. And so what does signal boost means is that it's basically that person's using their networks to kind of make the ask for you. So they're posting on their social media saying, hey, my friend Lou is running in the marathon. I'm hoping that anybody out here, who loves Outright or knows Lou can just kick in $10 towards the overall fundraising goal. And believe it or not, this actually works. And frankly, I think that even if people give you any amount of money, you also ask them, hey, if you wouldn't mind signal boosting this too, that would be helpful. Basically, it allows people to not necessarily have the cash, but still be able to participate and support you. All right, we're at number 8. Have fun and get creative. Fundraising can sometimes feel intimidating, but we're going to put the fun in fundraising. Yes, I had to say that. And so we want to encourage people to just really be yourselves as you develop these quote unquote asks. Again, your stories, how you're posting about it in your social media networks, but also writing up the emails or how you're having the conversations with people in person or over the phone. Some ways to kind of get creative with it is to think about breaking it down into how many miles are you running? Are you running the whole thing? Are you running just a relay leg? Can people give $1 per mile? That's sometimes another way to kind of figure out the ask amount that you're going to pay. You want to be competitive. I mean, I'm guessing that most people who are running are somewhat of competitive people. So you can get competitive with other team members that you know. Are you beating them? Are you behind? You can hype that as a way to kind of get creative and motivate people to give. And then, of course, there's always the artful use of photos, GIFs, videos, music videos, anything that can help draw attention to your fundraising effort besides just the boring same thing like I'm still fundraising for the marathon and I'm still $50 away. Have a little bit of fun with it, and just you can Google for a lot of these things like funny running photos or music videos that have running in them or something like that. It helps to draw more attention to posts, and that's specifically for social media. All right, here we are at the Thank and Celebrate page. So number 9 out of our top 10 tips about fundraising is, again, really that thanking people publicly. It's about building and preserving that relationship and making sure folks know how important it is, not just for the dollars that you're raising, but that relationship kind of support that you've got there. So once you start getting donations, you want to make sure that you're doing thank yous immediately. And even if it doesn't mean sending out a handwritten note the same day, even if you have text somebody or immediately email them back and say, hey, thanks so much for the donation, it really goes a long way and people really appreciate it. We already talked about thanking them publicly on social media and asking followers to match. It's kind of a way to kind of do a thank you plus an ask again. Just saying hey, I've had 10 people donate to my, marathon team so far. Will you be the 11th person? Because I'm running 11 miles. Again, think about these different creative ways that you can kind of keep the hype going. And then, as always, you want to be celebrating. There's milestones, within the marathon, there's milestones within fundraising. So your first donation means a lot. Your halfway donations mean a lot. And then the nearly there milestones, or even the people who get you kind of to the final goal, all are worth very much mentioning and celebrating and thanking in those ways. All right, number 10. You got to ask at least 3 times. So I know it might feel very scary to just put an ask out there and you get nothing back. But again, people are busy and there's actually marketing strategy software out there and surveys that prove that it takes somebody 3 times to see something that they want to engage with or they want to buy or they want to do something with. So you've got to be that marketing guru that makes sure you put this in front of people at least 3 times with the ask. If somebody hasn't responded by the 3rd ask, okay, they're not interested, they can't give, whatever the story might be. Don't take it personally, obviously. But if you're thinking about the ways to do these three asks, that first ask again might be that why, that like, hey, I'm running the marathon and here's why, email or story or whatever it is. If you need to do a follow-up, but the person still hasn't kind of said yes yet, the second ask is maybe just an update on how much you've raised, thanking those who've given, and again, a reminder that people can still give and here's how many days are left kind of thing. The third ask, I encourage people to kind of keep in your back pocket for like the day or 2 days before the marathon, where you're kind of doing the wrap up of how you've done so far. You're saying how much you've made. Maybe you've got a little bit more to go, or maybe you surpassed your goal and you're just thanking people. Again, you're always including a final like donation push ask in that final and third ask. And again, like I said at the beginning of this webinar, there's still plenty of time to fundraise. In fact, most of this fundraising is going to happen in these final 7 to 10 days before the marathon. So this is kind of the perfect time to time these first, second, and third asks. So if like, in the next couple of days, you get your first ask out there, maybe you do your follow-up ask on, Sunday night or Monday, and then that third ask is happening by Thursday or Friday right before the marathon. And believe it or not, that's it. The top 10 goals to raising money for the marathon this year. Again, goals for individual runners is $350. The overall goal this year for the team is $15,000. We're knocking on the door of being halfway there and about 10 days out from the marathon. So we know that you can go out there and pass your goal to raising money to help the really incredible programs for Outright Vermont. So want to thank you guys. And obviously back on that last slide there, if you guys have any questions at all for me, if you're having some challenges in fundraising or there's anything that's like, not making sense, you can of course always email me at director@outrightvt.org or call the Outright office at 865-9677 or ask Taylor or Amy, who are both the point people from the Outright board for the marathon team this year. And they're great for also the logistics questions related to the marathon too. Like if you've got final questions about what happens the day of, how to get your jerseys, your bib numbers, all that stuff, that's Amy and Taylor. But for fundraising stuff, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask any questions that you might have. And so that's it. Thank you very much for dialing in and webbing into this marathon fundraising webinar for today. We really appreciate you all being on the Outright team this year. Again, you're part of a growing team of over 100 local folks who run for Outright every year, and we really super appreciate it. With your help this year, we're going to get over that 80,000 total mark from the last 6 years of fundraising, and we're super stoked about it. And we can't wait to cheer you all on throughout the city of Burlington as you run by. We'll give you high fives and all of that. So thanks very much. And again, this has been a recorded webinar, so you can always go back to this and reference it anytime you want to. I'll also be sending around the PowerPoint as an attachment, so you can go back and check out that stuff in case you panicked and weren't taking notes or I went too fast. It'll all be there for your easy reference forever and ever in your email shortly. Before we wrap up, we've got maybe a minute or two in case anybody who's on the line, on the phone, or on the computer wants to ask any clarifying questions or has anything else. You can type them into the chat box and I can answer them before we sign off. And if folks don't have any questions, I'll just wait an awkward 30 seconds or a minute or so, and then we'll wrap. All right, I'm guessing that there are no questions. It was that great of a webinar. We covered everything that people possibly could want to know. All right, so I'm going to sign it off now, and thank you all very much for taking the time to learn some fundraising tips from Outright, and we will see you out there on the course. Have a great day.